Okay, we are going to continue with the topic of highway safety. And what we started with some calculations last time regarding the calculation of crash rates. And today we are going to see how we can use these crash rates. But first of all, we needed to calculate another ratio which is known as severity index. Severity index means the ratio of fatalities or deaths and number of crashes. So severity index is defined as number of fatalities per crash. Number of fatalities per crash. So for calculating the severity index, you divide the number of fatalities with the number of crashes. Okay. So for our example, the example which we did last time, we had 75 fatalities. Okay, and we had 2,360 crashes. So 2,000 PDO, 300 injury, and 60 fatal. So total was 2,360. Just to remind you what we did last time in this example, we calculated, or I showed you how to calculate the crash rates for on the basis of area population or population based rates or as and the exposure based rates. So population based rates included the characteristics dividing the crashes with the characteristics of the area. Okay. Okay, this is why we don't call, road crashes now accidents, because this was an accident. Okay, this was an accident, and we cannot control it. Okay, but anyways, so I was just giving you a recap of the. So for population based rates, you divide the number of crashes or fatalities or involvements in the crashes with some area characteristic like the population, licensed drivers, or registered vehicles. For exposure based rates, you divide the number of crashes or fatalities or involvements with something related to traffic like vehicle miles traveled, vehicle hours traveled, or number of entering vehicles if it was an intersection. And then we discuss the concept of a scale. So with each parameter we have a scale, because without the scale, if you just divide by the number, okay, then you will have a very insignificant figure. Okay, so if, for example, if you divide by the population of this area is 300,000 and the number of crashes is just above 2,000, so you will get a number which is 0.000 something. Okay, so we want to have some significant figure, so we with every parameter we have added a scale. So whenever you are dividing with that parameter, you have to multiply with that relevant scale as well. So I showed you how to calculate the crash rates, and in this example you are also asked to calculate the fatality rates as well. So just you simply change the crashes to fatalities, which is 75, and in this example number of people involved are also given. 4,100 people have been involved in the accident, so you can also calculate the involvement rates as well. Okay, you just replace the number of crashes with number of people involved. Now for the severity index, I said we will divide the number of fatalities with the number of crashes. Number of fatalities 75, number of crashes 2,360. Okay, so severity index will be 75 2360. Now keep in mind, I said it yesterday as well, that 75 is the number of fatalities, not number of fatal accidents. Number of fatal accidents were 60, but some of the accidents had more deaths, more than one death. So we have number of deaths as 75. So how much is the severity index here? Yes, severity index. How much is it? 0.032. Okay, you can say 3% accidents had deaths, but this is not how we present it. Okay, so severity index is not calculated as percentage. So 0.03 fatalities or 0.03 deaths per crash. 0.03 fatalities or 0.03 deaths per crash. Okay, moving on. So we have discussed it earlier as well that we need to calculate the high crash locations. Just give me a minute. Okay, so for identifying the high crash locations, I will show you two methods. One of them is graphical, the other one is analytical or mathematical. So the graphical method is by drawing the spot map. Now, whenever you are trying to identify the high crash locations, so we are always talking in comparative terms. Okay, so the location, we are trying to identify the location which has more crashes than other locations or other similar locations in the area. Okay, we are trying to identify a location which has more crashes than other similar locations in the same area. So if all, for example, maybe all the locations have at least 100 crashes, which is obviously a high number. Okay, 100 crashes on any site is a very high number. Even then, we will try to find out which location has the highest among all of them. Okay, so you would not say, okay, all of them have 100 accidents or more than that, so we should select all the sites simultaneously and start to do something about it. No, you always try to pick one or two sites and start from there. This is always the case, okay? And obviously, then you have to do a comparative analysis. So using the spot map or using the mathematical approach, you will try to find out a site which has comparatively high number of crashes compared to other sites. Okay. Now, what is the spot map? The spot map is a map of the area on which the occurrence of crashes are marked with symbols. So you can see some symbols are there. Okay, black, white, circles, squares, these are there. And you can see the legend is here. On the bottom left corner, you have the legend. Okay, so if you have a motor vehicle versus pedestrian accidents, it is shown with a circle, white circle, and a big circle means fatal, and a small circle means non-fatal, injury or property damage. Then if you have with motor vehicles only, then you represent it with a square or a black circle. Square means a fatal accidents and black circle means non-fatal. And if you have other traffic may include motorbikes, or in some countries, rickshaws and animal-driven vehicles and so on. So in that case, you are representing it with triangles. But you can see in this figure, there are no triangles. So there's no other traffic here. Maybe it's only for cars and these things. Now, if you just look at this map for 1 minute, you can identify the high crash location, right? This is the high crash location. See, Lincoln and Peyton Place. This is the high crash location. Okay. Now, if I ask you, give me a high crash highway. Again, it will just take you 2 seconds. This is the high crash corridor or the high crash route or the highway, whatever you want to call it. Okay, so it's very easy, right? It's very easy. Now, if you want to, if the authorities say no, fatal accidents are more important. Non-fatal accidents, even if they are high number, I will not focus on that. So, which sites have more fatal accidents? Again, just need to look at it more closely. Now, fatal accidents are these symbols, right? Big white circle or a square or a triangle. Okay, now you can see again no triangles. Squares are also very few. This is one here and there's another one here. Okay, but there are the only fatal accidents that are more common in this area are this motor vehicle versus pedestrians, and you know the reason, right? Pedestrians are vulnerable. They do not have any protection and so on. So they are bound to be involved in fatal accidents. Now, which location has more white circles then? Okay, so you can see there are two locations. One is this one, and the other one is this one. Okay, if you count the number of white circles here, 1, 2, 3, 4. If you count it here, 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4 fatal accidents on both of them. Okay, now you may say that now obviously I want to select one. Okay, you can do both as well. In the whole area, if you select two sites, that's not a big issue. But let's say the authorities are saying we need some prioritization here. Give me which one should be the most important site for remediation and improvement. So then in that case, you can assume that the number of fatalities are not given. Okay, the number of fatalities are not given. So I'm assuming that each fatal accident had one fatality. So you can calculate the severity index, and whichever site has the higher severity index should be selected. So for example, I have 4 fatal crashes here, and I have 4 here as well. So the number is same. This is 4 fatal out of 6 total. Okay, so if one accident had one fatality, then the severity index will be 4 upon 6. Okay, 4 upon 6 means 2 by 3. 2 by 3 is 0.67, right? 0.67. And this one, you see here, 4 fatal. Now this one is a smaller circle. Okay, so this is not fatal. This one is not fatal. So I have 7 total and 4 fatal accidents. So again, assuming that each fatal accident had one fatality, so it will be 4 upon 7. So obviously 4 upon 6 is higher than 4 upon 7. So this site would have the higher severity index than this one. Okay, so just with the analysis of 4 or 5 minutes, I have come to the conclusion that this one is the most dangerous site in terms of severity. Okay, it didn't take me too long. Okay, so working with a spot map is a very convenient approach for identifying the high crash locations. Okay, another approach of identifying the high crash location is applying the z-test. Now we have used a z-test for spot speed case as well. For the spot speed topic, we use a z-test there as well. So it is the same z-value, that is standard normal distribution. If you remember, we performed the z-test to compare between the average speed before and after study. It was for a before and after study, and we're comparing the average speed there. Here we are performing the z-test to compare between the crash rate at a particular site with the average crash rate of the similar sites in the area. Okay, again, so you should have a very clear idea that we are trying to find out the high crash location comparison to the other site. Okay, so for example, you have 100 intersections in your area. So on those 100 intersections, you will calculate the crash rate, and the crash rate for intersection is number of crashes per million entering vehicles, which is the VC, the total volume. Now, once you calculate that, so you will have 100 values, one for each site. Then you can calculate its average. So average will be termed as X bar, and you can calculate the standard deviation as well, which is termed as S here. Now, and you will only select a site for further improvement if the crash rate on that site is significantly higher than the average. Significantly higher than the average. Okay, so significantly higher will be established by performing the z-test. Okay, let's say the average is 20 crashes per million entering vehicles. Okay, for the example, just for an example, let's say the average is 20. Okay, then if a site has 21 crashes per million entering vehicles, some of you may say the difference is significant, it's one crash, and some of you may say the difference is not significant. Another site has 22 crashes. Again, the opinion will be divided. Okay, so we don't, again, as we keep on saying, we cannot leave these things to the opinion of any individual. We have to give a reason, a mathematical reason why we are saying this site has significantly higher number of accidents than average or normal sites in the area. So we have to perform the z-test. Now you can calculate the z-value using this equation. This is an equation for calculating or converting any variable into z-value. So x1 is the crash rate on your site, x bar is the average crash rate on similar sites, and S is the standard deviation for the same data set of similar sites crash rates. So once you calculate the z-value, you will go to the z-table and find out its probability. So this is a z-value this is a z-table which gives you the probability for each z-value. Okay, now a common mistake from the students is that they calculate the z-value and then they don't look at the table. They say, okay, this is the z-value, and they try to calculate the answer from there. No, that is wrong. Calculate the z-value, come to the z-table, and then we will check what is the probability of the z-value. Now our benchmark or our limit for the probability is 0.95. So if your Z value from the table gives you a probability of 0.95 or more, then you would say this site has significantly higher crash rate than the average. Okay, so 0.95 was the limit even in the spot speed data case as well. So 0.95 is the limit here as well. So 0.95, if the probability of the Z value, not the Z value itself, okay? I'm not talking about the Z value itself. You have to find out the probability of the Z value. If the probability of the Z value is 0.95 or more, then you will say the site should be singled out, should be focused for reducing the number of accidents. Okay, otherwise it's just like a normal site. Now, for since you, like I said, you may have data from 100 or 200 different sites. Now, for each site, if you come to this table and check what is the probability, you calculate the Z value first of all, then you calculate the probability and so on and so forth. So you will have to do these things like 100 times. For each site, you have to do this thing. They have come up with a more convenient approach, which is find out the Z value at 95% probability. What is the Z value at 95% probability? So I told you how to read this table. So 95% probability is somewhere between these two. This is 94.95 and this is 95.05. So somewhere between them, I have the Z value of 95% probability. At 94.95, the Z value is 1.6. See, the first decimal place will come from here and the second one will come from the column. So 1.64 is the Z value at 94.95 probability. Then at 95.05, the Z value is 1.65. 1.65. Okay, so my required Z value is between them, between 1.6 and 1.65. So it is exactly in the middle. If you take the middle of 0.9495 and 9505, you will get 0.9500. Okay, so I want a value which is in the middle of 1.64 and 1.65. 1.64 is the Z value for this probability and 1.65 is the probability of is the Z value at this probability. So I want a value exactly in the middle. So if you calculate the middle of 1.64 and 1.65, you will get 1.645. 1.645. So the Z value which I am trying to compare it with is 1.645. Okay, I'm trying to compare the Z value from the data with the Z value of 1.645, which is the Z value at 95% probability. So if I know the Z value, why should I go back to the table again and again? Why don't I put the value of Z in the equation itself? So I will replace Z with 1.645, and what I'm trying to compare, I'm trying to compare X1, right? Crash rate at each site. So I'll put X1 on the left hand side of the equation and everything else on the right hand side of the equation. So the resulting rearranged equation will be this one. So this is the equation after rearranging. I put the value of Z, you can see it, 1.645. This is the Z value when the probability is 95%. Okay. S is the standard deviation of all the sites and X bar is the average crash rate of all the sites. So from your data, calculate this number, the number which you see on the right hand side. Okay. Then compare this number with the crash rates of all the sites. Any site which has a crash rate equal or more than this number, whatever this number comes out to be. So if this number comes out to be, let's say 16, then any site which has a crash rate of 16 or more has a significantly higher crash rate than all other sites in the area. And then those sites should be analyzed in more details, and then you have to include some countermeasures and so on and so forth. Okay. So this is a more convenient approach instead of calculating Z value for each and every site and then going to the Z table to find out the probability and so on. So this is a more convenient approach. Just calculate this number and compare it with the crash rates. Okay. Any site which has a crash rate equal or more than this number will be taken as a dangerous site compared to the other sites. Let us look at an example here. We have a signalized intersection in a small city. Okay. The crash rate on that intersection is 15.8 per 1 million entering vehicles. So 1 million is a scale for entering vehicles, and why we are using entering vehicles? Because it's an intersection. Okay. For the intersection, the crash rates are always calculated for number of entering vehicles, which is the total number of vehicles we see. For all signalized intersections in the same area, in the same jurisdiction, they have an average crash rate of 12.1, and a standard deviation of 2.5. Okay, so you can see here, important point is they are comparing signalized intersections with all signalized intersections in the area. So you cannot compare signalized with roundabouts, or you cannot compare segments with intersections. Okay, so this is what we said in the previous lecture as well, that crash rates should be divided in terms of type of highway or geometric element of the highway and so on. Okay, so this is part of it, so that you can compare between similar sites. Okay. So they are asking if this is the data given, should this site with a crash rate of 15.8 per million entering vehicles be singled out for study and remediation? Study of what? Accidents. Remediation of what? Crashes. Okay. Study and remediation of crashes. Singled out means selected. Should I select this site for any further study and remediation of crashes or not? Okay. So I will only select it if the crash rate on this site is significantly higher than this average value. Now, anybody would say 15.8 is higher than 12.1, but is the difference significant or not? This is what we have to establish through the z-test. So for the z-test, we'll calculate the number on the right-hand side of the equation, which was 1.645 s plus x bar. So s is the standard deviation, 2.5 crashes per million entering vehicles. Average is 12.1 crashes per million entering vehicles. So you calculate this number, it comes out to be 16.2. So the number on the right-hand side is 16.2. The crash rate at my site is 15.8. Okay, so any site which had a number of 16.2 or more should have been selected. This particular site should not be selected. Same rule, right? 16.2 or above should be selected. So below 16.2 should not be selected. Okay, so this intersection does not have a significantly higher number of crashes than the average. Okay. Now let's say you selected a site using a spot map, or you selected a site using some other z-test or whatever, and you for that site you did the analysis. How to do the analysis, I will discuss it tomorrow. But let's say you did the analysis and you selected a countermeasure or treatment for that site, that this site should have this change. It will reduce accidents. But this is not the end of your job. You have to make sure that you have achieved the required results. Okay, and for that you do a before and after study. And if you remember, we also discussed before and after study for spot speeds as well. There we were doing it because we changed the speed. Here we are doing it because we are trying to change the number of crashes. In that case, we were collecting speed samples, so we had average and standard deviation before and after, number of samples and so on. Here, that is not the case. Crash data is different. We only have the crash rate before and the crash rate after the improvement. Crash rate before the countermeasure, crash rate after the countermeasure. So these crash rates are represented with FB and FA. B means before, A means after. So FB is a crash rate before, FA is a crash rate after. Okay, so you calculate the z value and then you go to the z table, find out the probability of the z value, and I told you the limit is 0.95. So if for your z value the probability is 95% or more, 0.95 or more, you will say you have achieved a significant difference by your countermeasure. The crash rate before is significantly lower than the crash rate after. Okay, this is how you do it. I think I said it the reverse. The crash rate after is significantly lower than the crash rate before. Okay. Now z-test has a limitation. The limitation is z-test should only be applied if the number of samples are enough. The number of samples are high. So number of samples high means more than 10. So z-test theoretically should be applied. Ideally, z-test for before and after study of crash data should only be applied if FB and FA are more than 10. Okay, at least more than 10. Otherwise, it shouldn't be applied. If it is less than 10, if FA and FB are less than 10, then what should we do? Then you go for this graph. You will find out if you achieved a significant difference or not using this graph. Now, what is this graph showing? On the x-axis, you have before count, FB, okay, crash rate before the countermeasure. On the y-axis, you have percentage change achieved after the countermeasure compared to the before. How much percentage you achieved in the crash rate after, okay, compared to the crash rate before. So for example, let me give an example. Let's say the before was 20. number of crashes before, or the rate of crashes before was 20. Okay, so on the x-axis I am here. This is my point. Okay, on the y-axis, let's say after the countermeasure the accidents reduced to 15, from 20 to 15. How much change you achieve? You achieve a change of 5 crashes, right? 5 crashes. And then you calculate the percentage of 5 upon 20. 5 upon 20. Okay, percentage crash, change in crash. I'm just giving you an example. When z value is more than 4, that means the probability is 100%. I told you for the spot speed case data as well. I told you for the negative values as well as values above 4 as well. So if you don't remember it, I will ask you to go and check that lecture. Okay, but basically if z value more than 4 means p value is 100% or 1. And x is 20 as an example. I'm just trying to give you an example. Okay, x20, just an example. Okay, so percentage change in crashes will be before it was 20, after it is 15. Again, these are just exemplary numbers. Okay, I'm trying to give you an example. Okay, 20. Okay, so this will be 25%, right? This will be, if you calculate this number, it will be 25%. So on the x-axis you have 20, on the y-axis you will plot 25, because that is the change you have achieved. So 25 will be somewhere here. Okay, so your number, the 2 points are meeting here, the x and y are meeting here. Okay, now what is the criteria here? If your required point is meeting below the curve, that means the change is not significant. If your required number is meeting below the curve, the change is not significant. If the number is on the curve, if the point is on the curve or above the curve, the change is significant. If the point is on the curve or above the curve, then the change is significant. Okay, now you can see 2 curves are here, right? 2 curves are here. One is dotted, the other one is solid. The dotted one is what we want. The dotted one is what we want, because you see here with the dotted one, they are saying this is to compare the decrease in crashes. So obviously we are trying to decrease the number of crashes, right? So usually you should be dealing with this curve. So if your point is on this curve and above this curve, and you achieve, first of all, you achieved a decrease in the crashes, not increase. Decrease in crashes, and you are trying to check if the decrease is significant or not. Okay, then you will compare it with this curve. So if the point is on this curve or above this curve, the number of crashes decrease are significant. Now if because of some unfortunate thing, or because you missed a lecture, or because you were not paying attention or sleeping during the online lectures, you actually recommended something which increased the number of crashes, So before they throw you out, you give them your resignation and come out. Okay, this is my suggestion. But anyways, I will give you a way out as well. If you after the countermeasure, because of some unknown reason, if the number of crashes increased, okay, so the first thing it means is you change your job. Okay, the second thing it means is now you will compare it with this curve. Okay, so the increase will be considered as significant if the point is on this curve or above this curve. The increase in number of crashes will be considered as significant if the point is on this curve or above this curve. Okay, so for decrease you will compare it with the dotted curve. If for increase you will compare it with the solid curve. Okay, and the way out is, if you increase the number of accidents but the point is below the curve, you can say, okay, the increase was not because of my countermeasure. Okay, it was because of something which happened on the side, and the increase is not significant. Okay, I did not make any significant change in the number of crashes. Okay, so there is still a defense for you if the point is below the increase curve. Okay, let us look at an example. A signal installed at a high crash location to reduce the number of right angle crashes. Right angle means this one. Okay, so obviously if you install a signal, it makes sense that these right angle crashes shouldn't happen, right? Because with a signal, these two guys which are going in perpendicular directions should not be entering the intersection at the same time, right? So the right angle crashes should reduce. So they observed 6 months data before putting the signal, they observed 10 crashes of right angle with right angle, and after then they observed after installation of the signal again for 6 months. So you can see the period before and after should be the same, and now they observed 6 crashes. So before it was 10 and after it is 6. So they have reduced. They have reduced. But is this reduction significant or not? So the first point is checked. Okay, they did not actually increase the number of accidents. Now, as I said, in this case, you should apply the graphical approach. You should go for the graph because after crashes is less than 10. But just for the sake of explanation, just for the sake of your practice, I will calculate the z value as well. I'll do it with the z value as well, just for the sake of your practice. Ideally, you should use the graph. Okay, let us calculate the z value now. Okay, so the z value will be 10 minus 6 before and after, divided by square root of 10 plus 6. Okay, so how much is the z value here? Okay, now we'll check the probability. So your z value is 1.00 basically. Z value should always be taken to the second decimal place. So 1.00, first decimal place from here, second one from the corner. 1.00 means probability is 84%. Okay, 84 point something percent. This one. What is my limit? 95%. So it is below 95. Okay, it is below 95. So that means you achieved reduction, but that reduction is not significant for the right angle accident. And it makes sense, you know, with the signal. Why do you have even 6 crashes of right angle? Who are these guys who are entering the intersections at the same time? Okay, so maybe there's something wrong with the design of the intersection, or maybe the design of the signal or something. Okay, so you did not achieve a significant reduction in a number of crashes. Okay, so this is why the z value. Now let us apply the graphical approach. For the graphical approach, I need the percentage change. I need the percentage change. So percent change in crashes will be 10 minus 6 divided by 10. How much is it? So 0.4 means 40%, right? .4 means 40%. Okay. So number before is 10, so I'm here. Okay, and 40% reduction is here. Okay, so the point is meeting below the curve. So that means what? The same answer, the percentage decrease is not significant. The percentage decrease is not significant. Okay, so you applied both the approaches, you got the same answer, which is very good. Okay, the bad thing is that in both the cases you found that you did not achieve any significant reduction. Okay, but the answer is the same, which is a good thing. Okay, but like I said, ideally you should be going for the graphical approach in this case. Okay, now let us see how do we find out the countermeasure. How do we do the safety analysis for any site? So in the first lecture of this chapter, I showed you the steps which you need to follow for doing the safety analysis. Okay, so after that we have started the calculation and everything. But the first step was collection of data. So you collect the data, you select the site and so on. Then for the site which you have selected, the site which you say has high crash high number of crashes compared to other sites. For that site, you collect more data in terms of occurrence of crashes and the environmental and physical conditions of the location. So for the location, which you said is a high crash location, you collect all the crash data available for that location and the data related to environmental and physical conditions of the site. Okay, environmental and physical conditions of that location. That these two data items must be plotted in the form of two diagrams. So these two diagrams are collision diagrams and condition diagrams. So when you are selecting the countermeasure, your analysis will depend upon these two diagrams, collision diagram and the condition diagram. Okay, without these diagrams, you cannot select a countermeasure. So collect the data, develop these diagrams, and then you go for the analysis how to select the countermeasure. How to select the countermeasure, we will discuss it tomorrow, but I will show you the diagrams and what is to be included in the diagrams today. In a collision diagram is a pictorial or a schematic representation of all the crashes which happen in a specific time period on the location. Okay, so you collect the data for all the crashes which happened on that location in a specific time period, and you plot it. Okay, you plot it in the form of a sketch or a schematic diagram. Now that time period is at least 1 year. Number of crashes are at least given in a collision diagram for at least 1 year, because less than 1 year, the number of crashes may not represent the actual trend of that site. First of all, because in 1 year you have seen all the seasons and all the trends and everything of traffic. You know, the traffic changes patterns in different months and days and years and so on. So in 1 year you have the complete cycle of all the traffic trends. Secondly, crashes do not happen very frequently. Even on dangerous sites, they do not happen very frequently. So if you collect the data for, let's say, 1 week or 1 month, in that week or month, you may only have 1 or 2 crashes. Okay, so at least you do it for 1 year, so you have at least some number of crashes in the on the location to be shown, and you can do it for more than 1 year as well. More than 1 year as well. Okay, but 1 year is the minimum, like they have said. You can do it from 1 to 3 years. Okay. These are the symbols which we use in the collision diagram. Okay, so the movement is shown with arrows. So straight arrow means straight movement, left. Then we have right turning, left turning arrows. Okay, for the respective turning movements. On the arrows, you can indicate the type of vehicle. For example, T means a truck, B means a bus, C means a cycle, and O means others. So others can be, I told you, motorbikes and so on. If it's a pedestrian, you show it with a dotted line or dotted tail of the arrow. Okay. Then type of accidents are shown with these symbols. Type of the severity of the crashes. Severity of the crashes shown by these symbols. So if it's a dash, that means PDO. PDO, I used this term in the last lecture as well. Property damage only. So no injury, no fatality. Shown with a dash. If it is a circle, white circle, that means the accident involved any injury, but there was no fatality. If it's a black circle, that means the accident involved a fatality as well. Then you come to the different types of crashes. So we have rear end. So you can see rear end means, you can see here, one arrowhead is meeting with the tail of the other arrow. That means one car is hitting the back of the other car, right? So we call it rear end. Then head on. So two arrows are meeting head on. That means both cars hit each other front on from the front side, and that is considered the most dangerous type of accident. Then we have right angle. I've already showed you the right angle. Then we have other angle. So anything which is not rear end, head on, or right angle is other angle. Okay, so you have other angle from opposing directions. So you have two guys which are coming towards each other and they're hitting each other at any other angle which is not right angle. But these two guys were coming from different directions. So maybe you were going straight and somebody was taking a left turn. So this thing can happen if somebody is taking the left turn towards your side. Okay, then you have other angle, in common direction. So somebody was going in the lane beside you and he tried to change the lane while you were going as well. So this can happen in that case. Okay, this type of accident can happen in that case. Then we have side swipe, which is, somebody scratches your car from the side. So you can have side swipe in common direction. So it is done by somebody who was in your direction, okay, in the other lane. or sideswipe from the opposing direction. So you had two lanes, one for each direction. Somebody scratch your car who is coming from the other direction. Vehicle going out of control is shown by this symbol. Okay, so maybe the brake failed or the driver slapped or whatever. And the vehicle collided with an object, then you showed it with this symbol. Okay, so these are the symbols which you use. This is the example of a collision diagram. Okay, so you can see, so what is this? This is a rear end accident. Okay, and this is only property damage, so it's a dash. This is a right angle accident with a pedestrian. See, and it involved an injury. So you can see a circle here. Okay, this is right angle accident between two vehicles. Again, there is an injury as well. Okay, and you can see that then this is other angle accident. Okay, with a pedestrian, and you can see what happened with the pedestrian. I shouldn't be laughing. Okay, this is a side swipe, common direction, same direction. Okay, now with the accidents, with each accident, you can see some numbers. These numbers are dates and times. So you have the date and time of each accident, and this is the most common thing which is included in the collision diagram. Okay, so the information which you can include in the collision diagram is not fixed. You can add more information as you want now, but usually the time and date is always there. Okay, now you see, so time is and date is mentioned with all of them. Okay, now you see with time they have written P and A. So P means PM, A means AM. P means PM, A means AM. Again, this is optional. Maybe you are using a 24-hour clock. Okay, so 5:25 PM will be 17:25, right? 17:25 instead of PM we may use this. Okay, so these things are optional, so they are not in a standard format. Okay, you can have your own format. Okay, so 4/1 means 4th month and the first date. In our case it may mean the reverse. Okay, so the other codings, the coding which you see with the accidents is not a constant. You can develop your own coding. And then you see some other alphabets here. Okay, some of the alphabets we have already discussed. So if it's like this one is a truck, we already know that because this is as per standard coding, the standard symbol. Okay, but the other alphabets you see, C, D, R, W, and so on, they represent the condition of the site at the time of accident. They represent the condition of the type of the site at the time of accident. So maybe the pavement was wet, maybe the light, there was fog, maybe there was rain, and so on and so forth. So you can, for each type of condition, you can develop your own legend, you can develop your own coding, and you can add it in the collision diagram. Okay, but I told you the common symbols I showed in the last slide, and the most common information to be added with that is the time and date. Okay, now because of the time, you can classify or stratify the accidents in terms of their timing. So how many accidents happened during daytime? 6. How many accidents happened during nighttime? 12. How many fatal accidents happened? None. Okay. How many injury accidents during daytime? 3. How many PDO during daytime? 3. How many injury during daytime? How many injury during nighttime? 2. How many property damage during nighttime? 10. Okay, and so on. So these are the things which you can find from the collision diagram. Okay. Then the condition diagram includes all the physical and environmental conditions of the crash site. Okay, the physical and environmental conditions of the crash site. These conditions include, but they are not, again, they are not limited. You can add as much information as you want. But these conditions include geometric features of the site, for example, length, shoulders, medians, curves, slopes, these things. Control devices including signs, signals, markings, lighting. Okay, we have discussed in the one of the previous chapters. And any other feature on the side of the road. For example, so roadside environment should also be part of condition diagram. For example, if you have a driveway on the side of the road, roadside parking, objects on the side of the road including trees, poles, pedestrian bridges, and so on. Land use on the side of the road. Okay, do we have a residential land use, or commercial, or bank, or hospital, or what? Okay, so all the features which are on the road or around the road should be part of the condition diagram. Okay, now how much should be the extent of the condition diagram? Like from my point, how far should I go in every direction for developing the condition diagram? Because as far as you go, then you have to collect more data. Okay, for example, you are doing it for an intersection. Okay, for this intersection. So if I say I will only go up to 100 feet on each direction, then you will collect data for the condition on 100 feet, up to 100 feet. But if you say I will go up to 200 feet, then you have to collect data up to 200 feet, okay, for the condition of the site. So there is no fixed distance up to which the condition diagram should be. There is no fixed distance. It will depend upon your initial judgment to identify the features which are causing the accidents at your site. Okay, so you say, okay, there's a bus stop. That bus stop is 200 feet away from my point. But the movement of buses, I suspect the movement of buses causing the accident at my location. So your condition diagram will go up to that bus stop. Okay, if you feel there's a school crossing, and that school crossing is, let's say, 50 feet away from the location on one side, and you feel that because of the crossing of the kids, the accidents are happening, then you go up to 50 feet on that side. Okay, so there is no fixed dimension for the extent of the condition diagram. This will depend upon your judgment as an engineer of the factors which are causing accidents according to your opinion. Okay, so this is the condition diagram of the intersection for which I showed you the collision diagram. Okay, so this, the same intersection is there. Now you can see number of lanes on each side are mentioned. The width of the lane is mentioned. The width of the median is mentioned. Okay, the placement of the signals are mentioned. These are the trees here. You can see the land use on the side of the road: parking, residential, stores, gas station. Okay, and again you can see some more information is written here. So as I said, there is no fixed template here that you can only include this much. Okay, so they have included, for example, clearance interval. The clearance interval is 3 seconds for this intersection, and they are using a actuated left turn on the Hillside Avenue. This is the Hillside Avenue. The east-west direction is the Hillside Avenue, and for the left turning movement, they are using an actuated signal. So there's a sensor on the left turn lane, and the signal only gives the left turn if the vehicle on the left hand lane is there. Okay, otherwise the left hand is closed, and so on and so forth. So this is the sort of information you give on a with a condition diagram. Okay, so in the next class you will see how we can use these diagrams to come up with countermeasures. Okay, so going for the attendance: Dua Rabi, Amna Muhammad, Muhammad Usama, Amal Abdullah. Dua Rabi, Amna Muhammad, Muhammad Usama, Amal Abdullah. Okay, Ali, you have to speak up, okay? And now this is the last lecture, and your questions are coming like this. I don't know what you are afraid of. I divided with 10 because 10 was the number of crashes which happened before. Okay, now by this time you must have forgotten what I'm talking about. Okay, we have discussed so many things after that. I divided with 10 in that example because 10 was the number of crashes which happened before installing the signal. Okay, last slide. Which last slide? Again, I don't know. Muhammad Noman Ali Muhammad Hakima Ali Zahra Sayyed. Muhammad Noman Ali Muhammad Hakima Ali Zahra Sayyed. Hakima Ali and Zahra. Fawaz Adil Abdullah Jaliluddin Abdul Rahman Ibrahim Nuzul Salah. Fawaz Adil Abdullah Jaliluddin Abdul Rahman Ibrahim Nuzul Salah. Nadine Hussam, Zahra Riyad, Abu Bakr Ghani, Zainab Ali Ahmed. Nadine Hussam, Zahra Riyad, Abu Bakr Ghani, Zainab Ali Ahmed. Nulwa Ibrahim, Mariam Abdul Amir, Masht Bashar, Asil Hassan. Nulwa Ibrahim, Mariam Abdul Amir, Masht Bashar, Asil Hassan. Ali Mustafa, Laila Ahmad, Hamad Khalid, Abdullah Usamuddin. Ali Mustafa, Laila Ahmad, Hamad Khalid, Abdullah Usamuddin. Okay, Fatma Abdali, Zainab Abdali, Zainab Abdullah Ala Salman. Fatma Abdali, Zainab Abdali, Zainab Abdullah Ala Salman. Isra Abdul Karim, Ali Abdul Razak, Elizabeth Ann, Ali Makki. Isra Abdul Karim, Ali Abdul Razak, Elizabeth Ann, Ali Makki. Okay, section 1. People from section 1. Okay. Huda, Dana, Ahmed Amin. Okay. Fatma, okay. Okay, so we are done, right? Okay, thank you. See you tomorrow, inshallah. Somebody send me a message. Anyways, you asked me what slide you are talking about. Which slide you were, everybody else can leave. Yes, Hamad. I didn't mark you. Yes, Ali, which slide you were talking about? And Hamad, what do you want to say? Okay, Hamad, you are done. Thank you. See you tomorrow, inshallah.